Kevina doesn't understand war. Or electricity. Or bumblebees. By disco-pandas. I worked with an interesting Kevina. Technically, well-educated with a master's degree. But some of the things she said were interesting. Sitting in the office, we're all typing away getting on with things. Out of the blue, Kevina says, guys, imagine we were in the war. I'm confused. What do you mean, Kevina? Kevina, like, we're as we are right now, working at our desks, typing away, but it's World War II and the bombs are going off outside. I'm even more confused. So working on our computers during World War II? Kevina, enthusiastically mistaking my confusion for understanding, yes. Can you imagine? Me, Kevina, there weren't computers like this during World War II. Kevina, yes, computers were invented when electricity was invented in the early 1600s. Keep up. I'm completely dumbfounded. Bonus story, we're all at an outdoor bar having afternoon drinks. Kevina suddenly screams and ducks. We all look around, she shouts, did you guys not see the giant seagull dive at me? Patiently as I could, I say, Kevina, a seagull didn't dive at you. A bumblebee flew past you. Her response? Oh yeah, I always get those two mixed up.
Cigarettes Are Good For You by Katniss-EverBeans. I worked with a Kevin at a pizza shop in high school. Super nice dude, funny, but the man was dumb as rocks, which in part contributed to why he was funny, I guess. One afternoon, we are in the middle afternoon lull of the day. So a couple of us go outside to smoke a cigarette. Our boss comes out and, as always, tries to give fatherly advice. Sees us all smoking and goes, I don't know why you guys do that shit, it's terrible for you. This Kevin of ours goes, nah man, it's totally good for you. We all think he's making a funny retort to try and deflect the obvious critic from our boss. So we all laugh a little. No fucking fooling this kid hears our laugh and goes, no. I'm serious. Cigarettes are good for your bones. They have like some sort of calcium and shit in them. The boy was dead fucking serious. Took probably 3 weeks of us bringing in research and medical books to show him that cigarettes are not good for your bones. Hoping he's okay out there in the big wide world. Bless him soul.
Kevin aimed a gun at our drill sergeant by age 1352. So we're in our final weeks of Army basic training, and at this point we're doing all the cool stuff. On this particular day we went to this range called Buddy Team Live Fire. You can look it up to see exactly what it's like. But it's basically when you and somebody else go through separate lanes and shoot down pop-up targets and throw grenades at the end. The person is maybe 15 to 30 feet away from you, give or take. Each one of you have a drill sergeant literally right beside you to make sure you don't kill yourself or the person in the other lane. I got paired with Kevin. We run through the lane smoothly. Kevin still had some rounds left in his rifle, so one of the drill sergeants that went through the lane with us wanted to shoot the pop-up targets at the end of the lane with his rifle. Kevin decided it was a good idea to point the rifle directly at the drill sergeant when handing it to him. Which is a no-no, you don't point your rifle at nothing you don't plan to kill. I'm a Kevin myself and knew he fucked up badly when I saw that. The drill sergeant yanked the rifle and threw it on the ground. Kevin tried picking it up and the drill sergeant kicked it before he could grab it. Got in his face and said, I swear to God if you would fucking killed me I would've haunted your ass and my wife would beat your ass every day. He was Hispanic drill sergeant, so his mouth had no filter. Then proceed to call him a retard, stupid motherfucker, and a fucking idiot.
A Kevin doesn't realize how Google works by Rand 0M glitch. So I've known a Kevin for quite some time now. He's genuinely a nice guy, but can be clueless at the same time. Kevin is also not the brightest when it comes to technology. I learned this after this experience. A couple of days ago, Kevin messaged me asking why he didn't receive a forgotten password email. I asked him some questions such as, did you send the email to the right account? Just trying to help out. Kevin's response went something like this. Well, I signed up with my Google account and did the steps. Then it sent an email, but since I used my Google account, not my email account, I can't change my password. I was confused at first, then realized Kevin doesn't know that Gmail is a part of Google. Kevin had made a separate account for every different service Google has to offer, i.e. Docs, Gmail, YouTube, etc. The reason he wasn't receiving an email was because he was waiting for an email on an entirely different account. I tried to explain to him that's not how it worked, yet he insisted he was right. His argument was literally, the G in Gmail doesn't stand for Google, it stands for global. You should know this since your dad's in IT. I just hung up and contemplated life.
Kevina doesn't know how cancer works by ButtontheBunny. This is on mobile, so apologies if the format is off. This Kevina could only be described as a story topper. She has a requirement, nay, a compulsion to turn the conversation back to herself when the spotlight shines on someone else. This narcissistic quality of Kevina means that it's almost comedic to see how far she'll dig herself to gain attention. If you're telling a story about saving a cat from a tree, she'll say she's done it too but also broke her arm while doing so. Don't ask where her cast is, it healed really fast. The title encapsulates Kevina's most recent tall tale. A friend of hers was describing her rather cancer-friendly family tree. With her history, she has more knowledge of it than the regular person and was telling the group about it. Kevina wasn't having that, of course. Below is a paraphrased conversation. Kevina, I've had cancer. Friend, oh that's unfortunate, what type? Kevina, stuttering, the doctor called me over the phone and told me it was some kind of bone cancer. Friend, wow, that's serious. What kind of chemo did you go through? Kevina, oh it only lasted a few months, I took radiation pills. Friend, right. So after contracting one of the worst cancers out there, Kevina conveniently managed to beat it with pills that would probably give her more cancer if they even existed in the first place. She's a medical marvel. Edit, thanks to the comments I found out that radiation pills do exist. Kevina knows a little bit about cancer, just not enough to realize that trying to one-up someone with a history of this terrible disease makes you still look like an awful person.
Kevin thinks states are in different months by VotekRacing. So I work with a few Kevins, but this one was too good not to tell. So a few co-workers in a different department than mine were talking together and one brings up how there is already snow in Idaho. One of them shows the other a photo on their phone and says I can't believe there's already snow in Idaho. It's October. Now Kevin is within earshot of this conversation and decides to chime in. But it's not October in Idaho yet. The other two are just flabbergasted and it takes them a moment to process what they just heard before they can tell him how wrong he is.
My roommate is a Kevin. A straight-up Kevin to the fullest. By FuckKarmaAndFuckYou. As is common with a lot of other Kevins you guys post in this sub, my Kevin a good, sweet dude. He'll give you the shirt off his back without thinking twice, but this dude isn't the sharpest tool in the shed. In fact, if Kevin was a axe, he'd be so dull and blunt of an axe that you'd mistake him for a damn sledgehammer. In any case, I have to frequently remind myself how much of a good guy Kevin is because the shit he says and does is beyond frustrating to anyone in his presence and I don't want to come off like an asshole. I bet that a few hours spent with Kevin could get even the enlightened Lord Buddha to break into a meltdown. All those years of meditation it took to reach nirvana down the drain. Fuck being the Buddha, this is too much suffering, I need to get laid and have a smoke. Kevin needs to take out his driver's license whenever someone asks for his date of birth and he will still fuck it up. My DOB is the 4th of the 16th month of 1993. So that's April 4th, 1993, right? Usually the other person just loses their patience and asks Kevin, sir, just read me the individual numbers from left to right. Kevin has never eaten Chinese food. There is nothing wrong with that, but whatever was going on in his brain is clearly wrong. So I was thinking about ordering some Chinese food and ask him what he wants. He tells me he doesn't like Chinese food because it's too spicy, so I was like, okay, I'll get some noodles and some beef or chicken that's not too spicy. I start naming your common Chinese takeout dishes and he has no idea what the fuck I'm talking about. Lo mein, pepper steak, sesame chicken, sweet and sour? Nope, I get nothing but a glassy-eyed gaze from him. I ask him what he ate last time that was so spicy. The dude starts naming some Indian food dishes. Kebabs, biryani and stuff. I was like, yo Kevin, that's not Chinese food,
That's Indian cuisine. He's not having any of it and a little argument breaks out. Turns out that the Indian restaurant is in Chinatown, so it's gotta be Chinese food according to Kevin. He then calls a mutual friend he went to that restaurant with and puts him on speakerphone and then asks him to tell me that yes, in fact Kevin has had Chinese food and that definitely was a Chinese restaurant. Mutual friend completely loses it and starts laughing like a psycho while trying to explain to him that just because a restaurant is in Chinatown does not mean it can only have Chinese food. I lose it too, and now two of us are dying of laughter. Kevin's face turns all red in anger and I could swear I saw his head swelling up ready to pop. Kevin drives for Uber and so do I as we both try to make our way in life. Now Uber deposits your earnings into your bank account automatically at the end of the week. If you want your earnings before that, you can instantly cash out. Uber takes a 50-cent fee for instant cash out. Kevin shows me that he has $1.83 in his earnings and asks me how much will Uber take if he cashes out right now. I tell him 50 cents, so if he does cash out right now he will have $1.33 deposited in his account. Kevin says, oh my god, that's almost half my money. Tomorrow I'm planning to make $50, so I'll cash out then, so Uber will only like $10 and give me $40. Uber is so greedy, if I cash out now they take half of my money, but cashing out tomorrow, I only have to give way less than half of $50. At this point my natural instinct is to educate the fool, but I know that if I attempt to do so, I'm entering into a world of hurt. I give it a shot. I tell him that no matter how much money he has in his earnings, Uber will only take 50 cents for each cash out. If he cashes out now, Uber takes 50 cents from 1.83 to give him 1.33. If he cashes out tomorrow with $50, Uber will take the same 50 cents from his $50 and give him $49.50. Anyway, I try a little while longer, but his stubborn ass can't get beyond Uber taking half of his money if he cashes out right now. Although I somehow trick him to not cash out at all so that Uber will take no money from him when they deposit his money at the end of the week. Kevin and I are talking about dental hygiene. We both agree that yes, brushing after every meal is a good idea and it works well to prevent cavities. Flossing? Yes, flossing is a good idea too. So far so good, but then I pull out my bottle of mouthwash. This is where the whole shit falls apart. I tell him mouthwash is good too. It kills bad breath and all the germs and shit in your whole mouth, especially the parts where we don't usually brush. Kevin is like, no way, someone said to do mouthwash but I don't do it. I never do it because it's just a way for the dentists to make more money. It has chemicals and stuff in it that messes up your teeth and helps the germs to make even bigger cavities, rotting your teeth. They want you to mess up your teeth so you can go back to them and give them your money. At this point, I'm flabbergasted as fuck and I ask him where the hell he got that idea from. I show him my mouthwash bottle and how it says it's antiseptic, which means it kills germs, it prevents gum disease, gingivitis and all those other oral diseases, but nope, Kevin is not having any of it. He's full of confidence that he knows it's a conspiracy for them to get our money and all that antiseptic, prevents gum disease stuff on the bottle is a lie. Never use mouthwash because it destroys teeth. Now I'm like, okay, so what about toothpaste? Look, this toothpaste says whitening and that it's anti-cavity. If the dentists and all these companies want to fuck up our teeth, then they would put tooth-harming chemicals in our toothpaste too. If we can't trust the mouthwash, then how are we supposed to trust the toothpaste? Look, the toothpaste and my mouthwash are both made by Colgate. It's the same damn company. Kevin then takes the tube of toothpaste and starts reading the shit written on it. I can see like maybe 2 brain cells light up. About 10 seconds later he has a eureka moment. I swear to all that is holy that Kevin then said, look here. It says made for sensitive teeth, which means they didn't put evil chemicals in it, and right over here it says extra fresh. Which means they only use the most natural and the most freshest ingredients to make this. So it's totally natural and good for your teeth, unlike that lying mouthwash. I then ask Kevin what if the toothpaste label is lying like the mouthwash label is lying. He tells me that I don't understand what he knows and that I should trust him about this. Kevin is an automobile expert. He popped the hood of his car that was running and sprayed WD-40 all over the engine and all the other shit that's in there. He read somewhere that WD-40 is good at cleaning greasy shit, so he decided to empty like 2 whole cans of WD-40 all over everything while that shit was running. A few minutes later lots of hot, black smoke started coming out from in there and Kevin freaked out. Did he quickly take the key out of the ignition and turn the running car off? Nope. He ran inside the building, filled a big bucket with water in the bathroom, ran down 3 flights of steps with that heavy bucket of water and then poured all that water all over the car's engine. I guess it kinda worked, the smoke definitely stopped. The car also stopped running. In fact, you can't turn the car on now. Turn the key in the ignition? Nothing, no engine sounds, no clicking sounds, nothing. Maybe it needs a jump? Nope, nothing again, battery is fine. It's been a few months now and that fucked up car is sitting right outside in the same place getting all rotten and rusty. I told him to save a little money and have a mechanic check it out. Nope, Kevin doesn't want to do that because mechanics fix one thing but fuck up your car more so that it breaks down again after a few months and you're forced to pay that same mechanic more money. That's alright though, Kevin is confident he can fix it himself. Because Kevin is so confident he can fix his own car, he walked into an AutoZone and asked an employee to give him the tools that are for fixing cars. What specific kind of tools, sir? All the tools that are used by mechanics to fix cars when they are not working. Kevin walked out of there with no tools, but he was definitely angry that AutoZone was fucking with him. They just want his money. A few months ago, Kevin went to visit his uncle in another country. Before he left, he asked me what kind of gift he should get for his uncle. I replied with the usual shit, you know, stuff like clothes, perfume, wallets or some electronic device. Kevin says, what about a gun? I could him a nice one. I'm like, what the fuck? A gun? Okay, say you get one for him, how do you plan on taking it with you to give to him? You know, since you're getting on an airplane to travel there? He says no problem. It's safe in a holster and I'll also have a gun permit to show to the airplane people. After hearing this shit I was like, what the fuck? You can't do that. You are gonna get tackled to the ground and your ass beat. You are gonna get your ass arrested. Our apartment raided. Interrogated for hours. Get me arrested. And best case scenario, they are gonna ban your ass from stepping foot inside an airplane, any airplane ever again. You crazy? How do you not know this? Kevin just brushed it off. If I make $100 a day, how many days till I make $200? Kevin and I went to Walmart to buy cleaning supplies and shit for our apartment. We go stand in the checkout line and Kevin whispers into my ear, hey, that chocolate, is that a Snickers? Can you pick one up for me? I tell Kevin to pick it up himself because he's literally standing right next to it. He whispers again telling me to do it. I'm like, whatever, and I pick it up and put it next to our stuff. Kevin then says that the Snickers should be next to me or that I should hold it. At this point I'm like, WTF? Do you want the Snickers or not? Why are you whispering in my ear? What's wrong with putting that damn Snickers bar right next to the other shit we are buying? Apparently Kevin was afraid that the people around him wouldn't view him as the masculine tough guy he thinks he is if they found out that the Snickers is for Kevin. I pick up the damn candy bar and loudly say, I love Snickers and this is for me. Kevin's face turns red and once again I swear his head size was swelling up. Kevin thinks he knows geography. He will say dumb shit like Florida is north-south of New York, Chicago and Atlanta are touching but Chicago is left. Kevin is also guilty of the classic girls pee from the butt. The first time I thought he was joking, the 10th time not so much. He refuses to believe otherwise because he's very knowledgeable about human autonomy. I'll probably be posting here a lot. My roommate Kevin is a doofus. Sometimes I wish he wasn't such a nice, sweet guy so that I could flip my wig and call him an idiot.
Why Kevina Doesn't Eat Chicken by WatchGirlfriend. I was on a yoga retreat 2 years ago when I met a girl named Kevina. She was the kind of girl who is Instagram fit, owns healing crystals, and goes to Coachella. Very much a free spirit, flitting her way through life. On the first night of the retreat, the group dinner was a vegan version of a Malaysian curry that is traditionally made with chicken. Upon hearing this, Kevina announced to the table, I don't eat chicken. The way chickens are farmed in the US is cruel and barbaric. They're kept in cages and pumped full of drugs. The table collective shrug / okay, fair enough. Kevina, I'll eat hens though. The table collective head scratching / but hens are chickens. Kevina, no they're not. They're totally different animals. The table, male chickens are called roosters, and female chickens are hens. At the end of the day they're still all chickens. Kevina, no, chickens were invented by the US government. Chickens aren't real animals because corporate farming has perverted them. The table, crickets chirping / Kevina, but I'll eat chickens when I visit third world countries, because they're well treated there. No amount of explaining or arguing could convince Kevina that hens are in fact chickens. Or that chickens are real animals. Talking to her was like repeatedly running into a brick wall. Eventually we all gave up and went to bed.
Kevin learns about bees by SaturnCats. This one is pretty short. When I was in 8th grade, my teacher struggled mightily to convince a Kevina that bees are pretty much normal insects, but when they sting you, they're injecting a toxin that hurts as defense mechanism. Kevina did not believe her. Instead, she thought that bees buzzed because they obviously contained electricity and the sting was therefore actually an electric shock.
Kevina doesn't know what a Nazi is. By Stumblehorn. So I used to work with a Kevina. One day after talking with some customers, she comes into the back room and asks a few of us, her co-workers, what a Nazi is. We all look at her kinda stunned. And I finally say, do you know who Hitler is? She says, I think I have heard of him. Okay, do you know about World War II? Did you graduate middle school? Yes. Well, Hitler believed there was a master race, you know, the blonde hair, blue-eyed. I have blonde hair and blue eyes. I know you do. Anyways, he put Jews in concentration camps. They went to camp? Yeah, where they went swimming, had medical experiments done on them, canoeing, put in gas chambers, mass genocide. I couldn't help myself. Then one of our co-workers spoke up. My grandmother was in a concentration camp and her eyes were dyed black because they were trying to give her blue eyes. Kevina, quick on it, I have blue eyes. And my grandmother has blue eyes, that didn't happen to her. It all went completely over her head. I can't imagine going through life not knowing what a Nazi is or who Hitler is. Or even better, that a concentration camp is like summer camp. My God. Edit. On mobile, so trying to format.
An update to Kevin the failed intern by salvefrater. In my last post, I talked about Kevin the intern who managed to lose any chance of getting a job by yelling at the CEO, beating up a vending machine, and lying about his intentions. I thought I had seen the last of Kevin, but the organization we both interned for was holding its annual conference and they needed help staffing the event. So Kevin came back not even a week after his last day. I heard or witnessed so many more Kevin stories over the course of this conference that I felt compelled to make an update. Other people who had to interact with Kevin on a daily basis filled me in on how he got hired and his daily routine. Kevin had heard about the internship when he talked to the retiring CEO at an event. This was a short 15 seconds talk while they took a photo together, but Kevin interpreted this as a job offer and was angry when he didn't hear back a few days after sending in his resume. He decided to call up the organization's main representative in his state to complain and request that he bring it up with the CEO to try to get the internship hiring supervisor in trouble. He was finally hired after guilt-tripping the organization by saying he needed this internship to finish his master's degree program. Kevin was majoring in museum studies and he was placed in the archives department to catalog the museum collection they maintained. The catalog tracked where each item was kept in the building. Kevin, despite only being an intern, decided to completely change the system they used, which meant the other intern had to spend countless hours cataloging every item back into the new system. Kevin would also routinely stare at her, and when she asked why, he said it was a prank. What? Am I not allowed to mess with you? He also deleted the part of the catalog that listed what building the item was in because everything was in the same building and felt redundant to him. This led to all the other categories like room and cabinet number being mixed up and inaccurate. Once again, the other intern had to fix the entire system. After a long day at the conference, we were all getting ready to go home. I was in the middle of talking to someone when Kevin comes over and grabs me by the jacket to lift up my label pin to his face. Kevin is at least 5 inches taller and 200 pounds heavier than me, so he's about to lift me off the ground. I've been wondering all day what this bin was. I am too stunned to respond, so someone else explained what it was. He lets me go only to grab me again to get a second look. Kevin leaves to give a ride home to another intern. He starts talking about Harvard, which he thought was in Michigan. Of course not everyone knows where Harvard is, but this man plans on working in a field where the only two options are academia or museums. Also his profile picture has a caption saying "Stand up to Harvard" in bold red font. The last night of the conference everyone was invited to a black tie dinner at a fancy hotel. Kevin manages to beg his way into getting a free ticket for his fiancée, Kevina, when every other intern only got a ticket for themselves. He introduces us to Kevina and says one of the interns is from Guam. This intern had actually lived in Guatemala, not Guam, for a few years and corrected him. He responded, "Same thing, they're both islands where they speak Spanish." Everyone else at the table was too dumbfounded to even try and tell him that Guatemala is not an island and they don't speak Spanish on Guam. There was also a delegation of people from Guam at this dinner. Kevina, while speaking very slowly and pronouncing every syllable, asked if she missed home. This intern again tries to explain that she's American and just lived in Guatemala for a few years, but it wasn't getting through Kevina's thick skull. When the salad came, I accidentally grabbed the wrong fork. Kevin scoffs and tells his boss we need to teach these interns some manners and etiquette. Remember, this is less than 24 hours after he grabbed me with no warning to look at a shiny pin on my jacket. The main course was steak and fish. Kevina poked at her plate and said this is some weird food without a hint of irony. That ends the story of Kevin and Kevina, at least for now. If I ever have to interact with this man again, I might just break down into a ball.
Kevin fails to grasp some basic concepts about employment. By Scream-and-Gobble. Kevin's employment history was rather sparse and spotty, but our good-hearted supervisor decided to give him a chance. Kevin was given a schedule which he found confusing, even though it was the same every week. He frequently called in, and was puzzled as to why that would be a problem. On one occasion, he agreed to cover another employee's shift, then failed to show up. When reached at home, he at first denied having agreed to work. When it was pointed out that he had signed off on the schedule change, he suddenly remembered but explained he couldn't come in because he was drunk. He was very surprised when he received a write-up for this incident, because, after all, he'd only agreed as a favor to the other employee and it wasn't fair that he should be blamed. Part-time employees, like Kevin, were eligible for paid vacation after 1 year. Within his first few weeks of employee, Kevin began putting in vacation requests for the immediate future. He could not understand why these requests were denied. Upon noticing that the scheduler would write vacation across the posted schedule when an employee had approved time off, he tried writing it in himself, apparently thinking no one would notice. This was not successful. Kevin once tried to call in with the explanation that his neighbor had had to go to work, so Kevin had promised to wait for the refrigerator repairman on his behalf. Kevin was told this was not a valid excuse and if he wanted to have a job he would have to come in. This was a very progressive workplace, so when Kevin requested to wear makeup and women's clothing, he was treated respectfully and told he could dress as he wished as long as his clothing did not interfere with actual job duties. This was a serious request, and was treated as one. We had an employee who advertised her services as a lesbian dominatrix. We had no problems with non-traditional sexuality. He asked if he could wear dresses. We worked with dogs, and the job was quite physical, and it was explained that a dress would not be practical. Shorts, capris, split skirts, all these were suggested alternatives. He then asked if he could wear high heels. No, Kevin, you cannot walk the dogs in high heels. Meanwhile, another employee abruptly stopped showing up for work. We were not particularly surprised, given that she had been warned about her attendance, but it did leave us short-handed. It broke Kevin's heart to see us all working so hard, and he went to the supervisor and told her he knew where the employee lived, and he'd be glad to go talk to her and try to get her to come back to work. The supervisor said, "Kevin, we don't want her back. She's not shown up in nearly a week. She doesn't have a job anymore." Kevin was stunned. "You mean you can get fired for that?" The supervisor said that was the moment she knew Kevin was hopeless. "Yes, Kevin, you can get fired for not showing up for work." A few days later, Kevin, despite many warnings as to what would happen, called in yet again. When he turned up the next day, the supervisor met him at the door and informed him he was fired. He did the "oh, you" wave, laughed, and walked right past her. She actually had to chase him after him through a lobby filled with clients and tell him she was serious and he needed to leave the property.
Kevina believes Ireland is a myth by username is taken. So this Kevina is a peculiar breed. She appears to have been involved in a freak accident that removed all common sense/basic understanding from her mind. The title is one of many famous ideas she maintains to this day. What makes her stand out from the crowd is her ability to maintain her opinion even in the face of irrefutable evidence. Here are some of her best. 1. Ireland is a myth. Kevina believes Ireland is made up and a conspiracy theory because potatoes come from the store, not disgusting mud. She is British and we both live in Britain, however I am Irish. I showed her my Irish passport and photos of me in Ireland, yet she still thinks it's photoshopped. 2. 3 months ago I caught Kevina crying. I asked her what's wrong and she said she didn't have long to live. I obviously asked her to elaborate and she said she was giving herself a tattoo with a highlighter and a needle and was told she would get ink poisoning. She ended up going home and wrote a will on her Instagram story. She lived. 3. Kevina had a huge crush on a guy we both knew. She decided to ask him out because, hey, Kevin/Kevinas deserve love too. She decided to message him on Instagram so if it backfired she could say her friend sent the message, her words not mine. She accidentally found the wrong account of a guy with the same name. A married guy. Kevina refuses to accept it was the wrong person and messaged them every day until she was blocked. 4. Kevina is terrified that if there is nuclear war the wind might blow the missile the wrong way and hit us and that the Trident submarines might sail under a country. Yes, she believes that you can go under a country as there isn't anything underneath the land. 5. She refuses to believe that London is in the southeast of England because when she went there the satnav pointed forwards. 6. She believes Northern Ireland shares a border with England and when shown proof proclaimed the maps are all drawn wrong. 7. She doesn't understand how sex offenders get caught as they could just lie about their age in court and get away with it. She doesn't know what a birth certificate is and says she never got one. 8. She greeted a French exchange student with bad German and shouted speak English or find a new job in France at a French ice cream man. 9. Kevina is a vegetarian, or so she says, but allows herself to eat pork, chicken and beef as they don't count. She laughed at me when I said gelatin is from cows and is in Haribos and said that Haribos come from factories, dummy. She also doesn't realize cows live after being milked and assumed they cut the cow open and there was just a bit of it called milk. That's all I can think of right now. Thanks for reading and hope you have a nice day.
I suffered through an entire year trying to train this Kevin. By enbied. Sorry for the long post, but I swear I've condensed it a great deal already. Kevin had just graduated high school and landed a job in my team. Our recruitment company had stopped working with us because we had poached one of their employees, and I suspect they placed him with us as one last piece of revenge. He was on a 1-year business admin traineeship, and seemed to think he was going to run his own business one day. Now, Kevin was nice enough. He showed up on time, he wore professional attire, he tried to sound professional on the phone. Unfortunately, he had an incredible lack of common sense and a complete inability to comprehend the most basic instructions. Despite us showing him the correct way to do things several times, he would still do things like stealing other people's staplers because he couldn't figure out how to refill his own. Bending paper clips out of shape to the point that they no longer even held the pages together, and saying "but I like it this way" when he was questioned. Instead of folding letters in thirds with the client's address in the plastic window, he would fold it in half, then in half again, and crumple the envelope to try to cram it in. While setting up his voicemail message, the automated instruction voice told him to say his name. He gave an entire voicemail speech instead. My boss told him to fix it. He did the exact same thing again. Walk away when he jammed the printer, even though its screen shows very specific instructions, with pictures, on how to fix it. He got chewed out by a regional manager for this one. He also told stories about being hospitalized for drinking too much water, and jumping into his car while it was being stolen because he always just left the keys on the seat. I kid you not, he was actually proud of himself, telling us all about how he was questioned by the police. He once asked me how to print a website. This was on work time, and the page was called How to Start a Business. I clarified that you would have to print each individual page, and he looked defeated. Halfway through his time here, we realized that he needed to be told not to sleep at his desk, to which he said it makes the day go faster. He would almost always leave 15 minutes early every day. My boss worked different hours, until he had it explained to him that he is paid to be at work, working. He once loaded up a manager's car with the round boxes of pamphlets, but couldn't even calculate how many we needed to recover, because he wasn't counting how many boxes he'd taken in the first place. This seems like a normal mistake until I tell you that I had set them up for him on a shelf, shown him, then taped on a post-it note saying for manager's name /. At one point I caught him trying to send spreadsheets of our customers' sensitive data to the external company that graded his coursework. I had to explain that no, you can't give out clients' full names, dates of birth, addresses and contact information to people who don't work here. He accepted a call from reception and told them it was okay for them to send a client to our locked floor. We're just head office processing the paperwork, clients aren't supposed to show up here. Then when the doorbell rang he didn't even get up to answer it. I had to do everything I could to converse with them without letting them in, meaning I wasn't able to go back inside to grab business cards for the consultants who could help them. This kid kept chewed off fingernails on his desk, and he spilled toner on there which he ignored until we moved offices. I counted. He just never asked, or Googled, how to clean it up. It wasn't on a part of his desk that he touched, so I wasn't concerned about poisoning, just wanted to see how long it would last. Guys, he straight up left it there for almost 5 months. After that, he was only in our new office for 6 days before his placement was finished, and managed to spill some kind of sticky, oily goo all over his desk and inside the drawers, ready for his replacement. He proved over and over that we couldn't trust him with anything even mildly difficult, so he only ended up performing about 15 to 20% of the role. Then one day he told my coworker this job is too easy and that he was looking to pursue higher education in the field. This was a shock to us all as his coursework was returned most of the time for errors. The weirdest thing I saw was when we had flimsy envelopes that needed a piece of tape in each corner to secure contents. He would place the 2 pieces of tape on top of each other. It seemed like every time we tried to teach him something, half of it flew right out of his brain. We tried different learning styles, hoping maybe if we wrote it down, or sent pictures, or got him to press the buttons himself a few times, that he would start to get it. No dice. I told my boss about one of his mistakes that I discovered after he left, and she told me some brains you just can't work with. He finally finished up with us a few months ago, and I'm still trying to adjust to working with his competent replacement. What do you mean? You know how to follow patterns, problem solve and refer to notes. I will never take common sense for granted again.
Kevina throws away her full ride scholarship by NaturalAntelope. My roommate, Kevina, was in a wildlife ecology course required for her degree. She was very excited by the material and couldn't wait to start. 2 weeks into the semester she comes home raving about how the professor is a sexist pig. After some prompting, she revealed that he said leggings are unprofessional in the workplace. Therefore he is a sexist pig. In response to this affront, the next week she drops the class presumably, without giving the decision any thought at all. The following week she is outraged to find an email saying her scholarship has been revoked, citing the fact that she was now at 8 credit hours, no longer a full-time student, and thus ineligible for the $50,000 Dean's scholarship she had somehow been awarded. Kevina spent the rest of the semester complaining, did nothing to fix the situation, and did not register for any classes next fall.
Kevin doesn't know how pregnancy works by Caitsarito. Kevin is a very good friend of mine, He really is a sweetheart with a heart of gold. The poor guy is just dumb, to this day has said some of the stupidest things I've ever heard. Kevin was telling me how he has had many pregnancy scares with his ex-girlfriend. He also informed me that she had not been on birth control and they would not use a condom. I informed him that was stupid and that's why Hess probably had so many scares. He then tells me that wouldn't make sense because semen doesn't have DNA in it. I was completely baffled by his response, and before I could even say how ridiculous this was, he followed with another great line. Plus condoms don't prevent STDs either. I'm not sure what they're even for. I wish I could make this up. This 100% happened and we still tease him about it often. He gets around, so I'm curious if he has any little Kevins running around. I hope they have more brain cells than their dad does.
Kevina wonders why Italians speak Italian. By deleted. In college there was this girl who was part of my friend group, but I didn't really know her. She seemed nice but apparently somewhat lacking in the common sense department. One time we were hanging out with our friend who is an Italian exchange student, D. She was texting one of her friends in Italy and for some reason I don't remember, Kevina asked to see the messages. I tuned into the conversation just to see absolute shock and confusion on Kevina's face, and she said, "Wait, why do you write to him in Italian?" We were all there like, okay, what is going on here? Dee explained that as she was Italian and her friend was Italian, that's just how they communicate because in Italy people tend to speak Italian. Kevina then comes out with, "I don't get it. You speak English, so surely it's easier for you to speak to him in English, rather than translate everything to Italian? And here's the kicker, do you understand everything he says to you even though it's not in English? Wow, that's amazing." Bear in mind she wasn't being one of those "you're in, insert country here, so you should speak language, people." She genuinely didn't understand and she was trying but eventually just gave up like, "This is so confusing, I don't get this at all." I still can't believe this conversation actually happened, or how it happened, but there we are.
My friend, a Kevin, who has never seen a night sky apparently by cosmicshamwow. When on a road trip to the US, we asked him if he brought his own toilet paper and proceeded to convince him that toilet paper isn't a thing in the US. It was only at the border when he looked at the trunk and realized we hadn't brought toilet paper either that he caught on. Thought unripe oranges, which are green in color, were called greenges. At midnight, he looked at the sky and said, "Whoa, the sky is black." And then pointed to the moon and said, "What planet is that? The sun?" It was a half moon that night. When asked to name the Great Lakes, the only one he could name was Lake Mississippi, which isn't even a Great Lake. We live in Canada where we have to memorize the Great Lakes for like grade 6 geography, so most people can name at least one. Thought Matt was pronounced mate because it looked French and all E's in French have an accent. He would never not fall for the gullible is written on the ceiling trick. I once got him 3 separate times in the span of 10 minutes. At a beach in South Ontario, pointed to the lake and said, "What ocean is that? It's about a 10-hour drive to the nearest ocean."
Kevin goes to college by iron oxide 1510. My college roommate freshman year. He's the kind of Kevin that should have died at 10, but is somehow in his 20s. The most infuriating part was that he's the only child in a family that's so rich he'll never need to work a day in his life. I got trapped in a contract that had me paying rent on the place regardless of if I stayed, and I couldn't afford to move out. Drug dealer that lives next door, "I have this stuff, it's supposed to be a synthetic opioid, but I don't trust the guy that gave it to me." Kevin pulls a pipe made from a Mountain Dew can out of nowhere and attempting to smoke the white powder before the dealer even finishes. Chases it down with a swig of isopropyl alcohol. Later that night Kevin drank an entire bottle of spiced rum by himself, went to bed, got up and peed all over his bed like a huge urinal, and slept in it again. Kevin traded a $400 speaker for 3 fake tabs of acid he only found out were fake when he was arrested for them, but couldn't be convinced due to them not being potent enough to do anything. Kevin somehow had a girlfriend back home. They agreed to have an open relationship while he was at school, but he dumped her when she mentioned having coffee with another guy. During that time Kevin somehow managed to seduce 2 to 3 different girls a week and still thought he was the victim of a cheater. Kevin got the clap. 4 times. Twice from the same girl who wouldn't get it treated because she thought the nursing students ran the university health center. Kevin faked a cough and somehow got prescribed opioid-based cough syrup from the university health center. He drank the entire bottle in 15 seconds. Kevin didn't believe isopropyl alcohol was actually toxic, and drank it by the pint. Kevin found possibly the single biggest Kevina alive. She was both a pansexual LGBTQ rights activist and a card-carrying member of the KKK. Kevin got herpes from her. Kevin got paranoid he was going to be arrested after hotboxing all of someone else's weed and pulled the fire alarm at 3 a.m. Kevin got sued for child support. Kevin tried to change his major to one that the school didn't offer. Kevin got in trouble for taking pictures of Jehovah's Witnesses and tried to argue freedom of the press. He wasn't even remotely affiliated with a news agency. Kevin woke up at 4 p.m. and thought it was 4 a.m. Kevin went to any given class maybe once a week and didn't understand how he could be failing. Kevin's GPA was 1.2, I'm still amazed it wasn't lower. This was all during 1 year. Edit. This was the 2015 to 2016 school year. Last I heard Kevin was sacrificing goats to Dionysus on his family vineyard and unironically believes the police go out of their way to harass white upper-class Protestants. He ended up majoring in photography. He also supported Bill Clinton for president in 2016, not Hillary, Bill.
My Mother, Kevin and Veganism by Aajiro. When I began trying to become vegan, my mother fully supported me. In fact, she made a vegan version of one of my favorite dishes of hers, a simple dish with rice, chicken, and soybean sprouts. I assumed she switched the chicken with tofu and happily ate it, but I mentioned it still tasted quite a bit like chicken. She told me that she put chicken in it and then took it out just for me, that way it will still taste good. Bless her heart. I didn't get mad at her, of course, she was genuinely trying to be helpful, but I will never let her live it down now that she realizes how ditzy she sounded.
2 Kevinas, 1 pepper spray by Biraccola. One girl brought a friend to the ER after that she pepper sprayed her as a joke. She told us that they thought that it was bad only for men.